College move-in day is supposed to feel like a new beginning, right? Fresh start, clean slate. But for me, it felt like I'd walked straight into someone else's life. The assignment came by email 2 weeks before the semester started. Room 313, North Hall. Simple enough. When I arrived, North Hall looked just like every other dorm on campus. Beige bricks, narrow windows, the faint scent of industrial cleaner and teenage anxiety. I checked in at the front desk, got my key, and dragged my suitcase up to the 3rd floor. Room 313 was at the very end of the hall, tucked into the corner like it didn't want to be found. The door creaked when I pushed it open, and there it was, my new home. A narrow twin bed against one wall, a rickety desk, a wardrobe with a mirror cracked along the edge. The standard dorm setup, nothing unusual, except for one thing, it looked lived in. Not in the usual way, not messy, no clothes strewn about, but more like settled, like someone had been here before me just long enough to make the space theirs, and then left in a hurry. On the desk, there was a small circular stain from a coffee mug. In the closet, a single wire hanger hung crookedly, swaying slightly as if it had just been brushed, and on the windowsill, a dried-up plant in a cracked pot. I should have reported it to the RA, but I didn't. Why? I don't know. Maybe I didn't want to be that person, the freshman who complains on day one, or maybe some part of me felt like the room was already mine, claimed, not assigned. That night, after unpacking, I lay on the bed and stared up at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of other students settling in, laughter echoing down the hallway, doors slamming, music leaking through the walls. But above all that, there was something else, a faint, rhythmic creaking, not from the floorboards, not from the old pipes. It sounded like breathing, slow, measured, almost deliberate. But when I sat up, heart thudding, it stopped. You ever tell yourself you're just imagining things? Yeah, me too. The next morning, I went to the front desk to ask about getting a new chair. The one at the desk in my room was missing a wheel. The RA pulled up my info on her tablet, frowned, and said, "That's weird." "What?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. My name, North Hall, room 312, not 313. I blinked. No, my email said 313. She shook her head. Not possible. There is no 313. She pulled up the floor plan, a detailed blueprint of the 3rd floor, and she was right. The numbers went from 312 straight to 314. No mention of 313, no door, no space. I felt a cold knot twist in my stomach. I'm staying there right now, I insisted. But she just gave me that look, the one people give when they think you're either joking or losing your mind. Maybe you read it wrong. Would you have argued? Because I didn't. Not then. I just nodded, muttered something about checking my email again, and walked out of the office. Straight back to 313. The room was still there, my stuff still unpacked. The cracked mirror still reflecting me back at myself. The hanger in the closet still swaying ever so slightly, and the creaking back again. But this time, it didn't stop when I sat up. It kept going, slow, steady, like something breathing just beneath the surface of the walls. Over the next few days, I tried to convince myself it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe the room had been left off the floor plan. Maybe the RA made a mistake. Maybe, but you know that feeling when something inside you knows the truth, even if your brain refuses to say it out loud? That was me. I kept going to class, meeting people, playing along like everything was normal. But every night, I'd come back to room 313, and every night, the breathing would be there. Sometimes faint, sometimes loud enough to make the old radiator rattle like it was trying to shake the walls loose, and every morning, something would be different. At first, small things. The closet door slightly ajar, even though I knew I'd shut it. The chair moved half an inch closer to the desk. But then, one morning, I woke up to find my suitcase zipped up and standing by the door, like someone or something had packed it for me. Would you have left? Because I didn't. I should have. But instead I stayed. I told myself it was just stress. First year of college, new environment, classic anxiety stuff. But deep down, I knew it was more. One night, unable to sleep, I grabbed my headphones and put on some music to drown out the creaking. A familiar playlist, old comfort songs from back home. But then, as Hotel California came on, I froze at the lyrics. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. I'd heard that song 100 times before, but at that moment, it felt like a message, like the room itself was singing to me. I laughed, this dry, hollow sound, then shut the music off and pulled the covers over my head like I was 10 years old again. But of course, the creaking didn't stop. The next day, I decided to check the building records. The campus library had archives going back decades, including old floor plans and maintenance logs. I figured maybe there'd be something, anything. But when I got to the archives, pulled out the dusty blueprints for North Hall, I stopped cold, because there it was, room 313, right there, clear as day. Only the blueprint was dated 1977, and in the margin, a handwritten note in red ink, sealed, "Do not reassign." I stared at that note, heart racing, my mind doing that thing where it tries to explain the impossible with something rational. Maybe they sealed it for renovations. Maybe there was asbestos or a structural issue. But then I noticed the file stapled to the back of the blueprint, an old incident report, just one sentence typed in faded ink. Following the events of October 12th, room 313 is to remain permanently unoccupied. No details, no names, just that. And the date, October 12th, today's date. Would you have gone back after reading that? Because I did. Of course I did. When I got back to the dorm, everything looked the same. The cracked mirror, the swaying hanger, the coffee stain on the desk. Except the suitcase by the door was gone like it had never been there. And for the first time, the creaking had stopped. But the silence, somehow, it was worse. That night, I didn't even bother unpacking my backpack. I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door, waiting for what exactly? I wasn't sure, but something told me I wouldn't have to wait long. Around midnight, the temperature in the room dropped. You know that kind of cold that doesn't make sense? Not like a draft from a window, but something deeper, like the walls themselves were exhaling ice. And then the creaking returned, but not from the walls this time. It was coming from a closet. Slow, deliberate, like someone or something shifting their weight inside. I stood up, my body moving before my mind could stop it, and walked to the closet door. I placed my hand on a knob, expecting it to be cold, but it was warm, almost feverish. Would you have opened it? Because I did. Of course I did. The door creaked open, revealing nothing, Just the same crooked hanger, the same dusty shelf, except on the floor, a box I'd never seen before, an old shoebox covered in faded stickers from a band I didn't recognize. I knelt down and opened it. Inside, photos, dozens of them, all Polaroids, all of the same thing. Room 313, the desk, the bed, the cracked mirror. But in each photo, someone else was there, sitting on the bed, or standing by the window, or staring into the mirror. Different people, different years, judging by their clothes, but always the same room. And in the last photo, me, wearing the exact clothes I was wearing now, sitting in the exact position I'd been in earlier that night. I dropped the photo, stumbled back, heart racing. This couldn't be real. I hadn't taken that. I hadn't. And then I heard it, behind me, the unmistakable sound of someone breathing. I spun around, but the room was empty, or at least I thought it was, until I caught my reflection in the cracked mirror. But it wasn't moving like I was. It just stood there, staring, smiling, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't belong to me. That's when the light flickered and went out. Complete darkness, except for the faintest whisper coming from the closet behind me. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. Would you have run? Because I didn't. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. And now I'm sitting here writing this. The breathing hasn't stopped. And sometimes when I look at the mirror, I swear I'm not the one sitting on the bed anymore. Maybe I never was. So if you ever get your dorm assignment and it says room 313, do yourself a favor. Don't unpack. Don't settle in. Just turn around and leave, because some rooms aren't meant to be lived in. They're meant to keep you. College is supposed to be where you find your people, right? That's what I thought too. But sometimes your people find you first. I never planned to rush a fraternity. I was one of those kids who scoffed at the idea. Too cool, too detached for that whole brotherhood thing. But there was this party, and then this message left under my dorm door. Meet at the house. Midnight. Come alone. No signature, but I knew where. Everyone knew about that house. The oldest frat on campus, with rumors thicker than the ivy crawling up its bricks. They say someone died in that basement back in the 80s during a hazing gone wrong. But of course that's just one of those stories you tell freshmen to scare 'em, right? So I went. Would you have gone? The house was silent when I got there, door unlocked, lights off, except for a faint glow seeping from the basement stairs. I descended. The air smelled of mildew and cheap beer and something else I couldn't place. Metallic. 5 guys stood in a loose semicircle, faces hidden behind these featureless white masks. One of them handed me a blindfold. No word, just the offer. Would you put it on? Because I did. Why? Honestly, I'm not sure. Pride, curiosity, fear, all three. They led me deeper into the basement. I could feel the cold concrete under my knees when they made me kneel. One voice asked, "Do you swear to keep what happens here between us forever?" I didn't even hesitate. Yes. Then they poured something over me. Cold, sticky, smelled like beer but burned like rubbing alcohol. Someone laughed. Another whispered, "It's done." That's when I heard it. A sound I wasn't expecting. Not from them, but from somewhere else. This whimpering. like someone crying softly in the corner, but when I lifted my head, yanked the blindfold off, the room was empty except for us, and a tarp covering something lumpy, heavy. Someone shoved a cup into my hand, told me to drink. I did, because what else do you do in a moment like that? Then they led me back up the stairs, out into the night air. No explanations, no nods of approval. Just, see you soon? When I got back to my dorm, soaked and shivering, there was something waiting for me. Slipped under the door a photo of the basement from earlier that night, and in the background, lying under the tarp, a shoe sticking out, still attached to a foot. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there staring at that photo, that foot, limp, pale, sticking out from under the tarp like it was trying to escape, like it wanted someone to notice, and I couldn't stop asking myself, did I just witness a murder? Or worse, was I part of it? The next day I tried to act normal, went to class, ate lunch with friends, but all I could hear was that soft whimpering from the basement. That sound hadn't come from me. I know that, but no one else seemed affected. The other pledges walked around campus like nothing had happened, laughing, making plans for the weekend, so I decided to ask. Cornered one of them after a lecture. You heard it too, right? He just stared at me. What? In the basement. The crying. He shook his head, laughed nervously, then walked away like I'd just asked him if he believed in ghosts. Maybe I had. But then the messages started. At first, just a single text from an unknown number. You told no one, right? Then another. Good, keep it that way. And finally, welcome to the Brotherhood. No signature, but they didn't need one. The next week passed in a blur. Meetings, parties, endless questions from people who wanted to know what it was like to be in. But I couldn't stop thinking about the basement, about what was under that tarp. So one night, I went back, alone. The house was empty. Finals week. Everyone gone or drunk somewhere else. I made my way down those same creaky stairs, the smell of mildew thicker now, heavier. The tarp was still there, exactly where it had been. But this time, no one to stop me. I pulled it back, slowly, and underneath, just a pile of old weights, rusty, covered in grime. No body, no foot, nothing except taped to one of the dumbbells. A photo. The same photo I'd found under my dorm door, only this time there was writing on the back. Just 2 words. You passed. That's when I realized the whimpering, the tarp, the photo. It was all part of it. The test, to see if I'd talk, to see if I'd crack. And I hadn't. Would you have? Because here's the thing. I'm still not sure what scares me more, that there never was a body, or that maybe there was once, and now I'm part of it, whatever it is. Sometimes when I walk past the house at night, I swear I still hear it, that soft, broken sound, like someone crying in the dark, and I wonder, what will they make me do next? They say that every college has its own ghost story, but on my campus, it's not just a story, it's a sound. The bell, every night at 3:33 a.m., without fail, the old iron bell in the tower above the library tolls once. No one talks about it much. If you ask, most people shrug and say it's a malfunction, just a relic from the 1800s that no one bothered to fix. But here's the thing. The bell isn't connected to anything. No mechanical system, no automatic timer. The rope that used to ring it was cut decades ago. It's just there. And yet, every night, one toll. I first heard it during orientation week. Woke up in my dorm, heart racing, the sound echoing through the empty quad. At first, I didn't think much of it. Old buildings make noise, right? But then it kept happening, night after night, always at exactly 3:33. The weirdest part, no one else seemed to notice. I asked my roommate. He just looked at me confused. What bell? You ever have that moment when you realize you might be the only person hearing something? That kind of isolation, it gets under your skin. So I started paying attention, setting an alarm, waking up, sitting by the window, waiting, and every night, bong, one perfect, resonant toll, echoing across the campus like a funeral procession for someone no one remembered. Then, nothing. Complete silence. No footsteps, no voices, just stillness. I decided to do some digging. Went to the library, asked the staff about the bell. Most of them gave me the same answer. Oh, it hasn't worked in years. But one librarian, old guy, white beard, looked like he'd been shelved there along with the books, just stared at me for a long time. Then he said, "You should stop listening for it." I laughed nervously. Why? He leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't toll for the living." After that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. What did he mean? So I did what anyone would do. I searched. Found an old student forum, long abandoned from the early days of the internet. Hidden in a thread titled Campus Legends was one post. No username, just "The bell tolls for every soul lost on campus grounds." I scrolled further. Someone replied, "How do you know when it's for you?" And below that, just one chilling answer: "You'll be standing under it." After reading that, I couldn't sleep. But the next night, at 3:33, I heard it again. Bong. And for the first time, I wondered, who was it for this time? After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the bell was getting louder, not in volume, in presence. Like it wasn't just sound anymore, but something heavier, something closer. You ever feel like something's pulling you somewhere even when you know you shouldn't go? That was me. So I made a decision. One I still question. I was going to the tower that night. At 3:30 a.m., I left my dorm, hoodie pulled tight, breath fogging in the cold. The campus was empty, silent, as if the world itself had paused to watch what I was about to do. The library loomed in the distance, its clock tower piercing the dark sky like a finger pointing to something I couldn't see. I made my way up the stone steps, pushed open the heavy wooden door, and slipped inside. The air was thick with dust and disuse. The tower had been locked for years. But tonight, the door to the staircase was ajar. I don't remember opening it, just stepping through. The spiral staircase groaned with every footfall as I climbed higher and higher, the walls narrowing, the air thinning, and then I reached it. The bell, hanging there, massive and still, a dark iron monolith suspended in the center of the room. The rope, severed decades ago, dangled like a noose from the ceiling. I checked my phone. 3:32 a.m. 1 minute. I stood there staring at it, heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear my own breath, and then bong! The sound ripped through the space, vibrating in my chest, shaking the floor beneath my feet. But the bell hadn't moved, no sway, no shift, just Stillness, yet the sound kept echoing like it wasn't coming from the bell at all, but from inside me. Then, behind me, footsteps, slow, deliberate. I turned, nothing, just the staircase winding down into darkness. But then, a voice, barely a whisper, but clear. "You're standing under it." I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the uneven stone, eyes darting around the empty space. But I was alone, wasn't I? The cold hit me all at once, so sharp it felt like it could cut through bone. I glanced at my phone again. No signal, no time, just a black screen, like it had given up trying to warn me. And then I realized the door at the base of the tower was gone, or at least it wasn't where it had been. The staircase just spiraled endlessly down into nothing. I ran to the edge, looked over, darkness, no floor, no walls, just void. And from deep below, the faintest sound, bong, again and again, each toll softer, but somehow closer, until it wasn't a sound anymore. It was a feeling, a pressure in my chest, a weight behind my eyes, like something was pulling me down, calling me by name. That's when I realized the bell hadn't tolled for someone else that night. It had tolled for me. Would you have jumped? Would you have stayed? Because I'm still here, I think. But sometimes, when it's quiet, when everyone else is asleep, I swear I can still hear it. Bong! And I wonder, did I ever make it out of that tower? Or am I still there, listening, waiting for the next name?